What is up, guys? This is Alex from First Figures.
Hey there everyone, this is Chuggles.
Who do we have here? Metal Gear Solid
Psycho Mantis!
Hey! This time I really got to sort of stretch my neck to be looking up there. One of the tallest pieces ever.
One of the tallest pieces.
And this time no gimmicks.
No.
In the sense that it's not like it's like a wings from a dragon or something like that. It really is quite tall. And he's obviously on the space as well, but definitely the whole thing, he's really imposing the way he's sort of up there.
Yeah.
It's really up there. But Jocks, it's been a long time in coming. A long time in coming. It's been maybe 4 or 5 years, something like that. Bearing in mind when it took going for the license and getting that all together and having initial designs. We talked a little bit about that during the making of the Solid Snake diorama. The piece, the Solid Snake version. But yeah, definitely really happy to finally be here after quite a considerable amount of time. So yeah, Chocks.
Yes.
Cool. So what are we doing here? This is a making of documentary.
That's
so
right.
For those who've never joined us on one of these making of documentary Chocks, what's it all about?
That's right, making of documentary. So this is our second Metal Gear Solid piece in the Metal Gear Solid line. Do check out the other making of documentary that we have for Solid Snake on our YouTube channel.
Yep.
And basically we will go through everything that you guys have asked us in the Collectors Club on our Facebook. We have one that's called First for Figures Official Collectors Club, and basically just as we go to launch, I will make a post in there asking you guys, do you have any questions about this particular launch, this statue, how did we get here, what was made, why did we make it, etc, etc. And yeah, do enjoy this video.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, whilst we're thinking about answering those questions, should we give this beast a bit of a turn? Boom! Love it.
Really floating, guys. Levitating.
It's come out very well, bearing in mind we're limited by something called gravity.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, cool. Alright, Shock, should we get stuck in then?
Okay, straight into the first question.
Alright.
From our member Alessio Bucci, how did you choose Psycho Mantis as second in the line?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, in terms of the launch and in terms of the characters after the launch, does it make any difference if Psycho Mantis was first, second, third, or fourth? I mean, to be honest with you, Psycho Mantis, we were making him anyways. Does it make a difference if he comes second, or third, or fourth? You could certainly make the case that the first in the line is really important. There's also a case to say it not necessarily is. I mean, we've launched many different lines where it's not necessary that the main character is the first in the line, as an example. And I think you could take Zelda. We started out with Fierce Lady Link, and it was a while before we got to Link, as an example. But for me, why not? Why not have him the second in the line? They're all going to get their time. They're all going to have their spotlight. Would it make a difference? I'm not convinced.
I mean, it all boils down to support. I mean, if you're a big, massive Metal Gear Solid fan, I don't see why you wouldn't pick a Psycho Mantis. He's a all-time classic character in the first game, because this is based on the first game.
At the end of the day, it doesn't. As I said, it doesn't really make too much of a difference between what. I mean, the popularity of the character will be the popularity of the character, and it will be the same if you launched it on the second or the fourth or the.
To some, I can understand. To some, Psycho Mantis might be their third or fourth character, but for some others, I want it right after Metal Gear Solid Snake.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, I mean, in any case, it's a second.
It's a second, and
there's no reason or the reality is we were developing a few at the same time, and Solid Snake came first, and then Psycho Mantis was further on the development line, and just that's kind of how it sort of comes together usually. Yeah.
Right.
God, I'm looking really.
We have to. All right.
If only we were taller, Chocks.
Alright, next question from Matt Reed. This is a long one. How much did it help this line when IGN specifically covered Solid Snake on its site in 2017? That is personally where I first heard of the FRF company. IGN even flat out said in 2017 you were doing a Snake. Mantis, Fox, and you were also working on a Sniper Wolf. Did you set that many? Did that part of the video bother you, as you guys are so secretive with your projects?
So first of all, let's just go back to the
First
video
of all, I
you
just
were
want
talking
to
about.
first of all, I just want to say thanks to IGN for
Absolutely.
coming to our booth at NYCC 2017.
That's
and
right.
That's where you did
So
the interview with them.
That's right. So I guess Matt actually sort of saw that video back in October 2017, which is really cool, and I'm glad that from that moment that he knew about us, that he's been in the Collectors Club long enough to know that when we did the Psycho Mantis launch, he was there to ask this question.
Yeah,
So that's really
well,
great.
it's perfect timing.
Yeah,
Right?
perfect
When
timing.
you saw that, that was the very first time we unveiled Solid Snake at a public
Sure,
event.
that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So, you know, in terms of the coverage, really happy to hear that IGN covered that, and definitely there's no issues with in terms of having some conversation about the potential of the necks in the lines. So, are we normally secretive? I wouldn't actually say we typically are. A lot of the things is about maybe a year or so ago, I asked the club, would you guys like to know about things coming up in advance? Or would you rather we didn't tell you until the last moment and then just do a pre-order? Now, there's pros and cons to that. If you just immediately launch with a pre-order chocks, a lot of the time it has that magic, that kind of feeling and all that sort of stuff. But on the flip side, these are you know, a higher price point, and therefore people need a bit of time.
Yeah, they're not like post purchases, right?
They're not impulse purchases. You need to have a bit more time to digest it and time to prepare for it. So I think we follow the club suggestion where it was more about letting people know ahead of time that they were coming. So if we were talking about Psycho Mantis in October and that was something you were interested in, hopefully you've saved up some money for now, because it's now been X amount of months later, you know, quite a lot. What are we in July? No, August. August. So it's coming up to a year. So hopefully you've taken that last 10 months or what have you to prepare.
And prepare for Fox.
Oh yeah, you know, absolutely.
All
All right.
cool. Next question from a Daniel Illy. What did you use as a reference when sculpting him?
So, you know, that's a great question. So we were given, there are some different levels of types of references we've had. The first one you can look at directly is from the PlayStation game, the original PlayStation game. There's that as a reference. There's of course the artwork, the official artwork that there is there, of course, of Psycho Mantis. And lastly, there is Twin Snakes, which is the GameCube version upgrade from the original PlayStation version of Metal Gear Solid. So in terms of what did we use pretty much a bunch of everything to come up with this version. You can almost say that there are some aspects of his suit that are from the original one, and some aspects that are there from the latest, you know, from the HD version. Chops, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, for example, I mean, like from the original PlayStation, it's obviously back then it was like very polygonal, right? So
Correct, yeah.
we trying to make sure we've done the research on that side and done the research on the latest revamped version, and trying to still capture the realistic look of Psycho Mantis. So we had the same mentality that we did with Solid Snake, where we had to make sure that, you know, the proportions are up to scratch, what he's wearing, the kind of textures and proportions, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, but in terms of his suit specifically, there's a couple of differences. The first one, why don't we talk about the hand themselves?
Yeah, so immediately the gloves, right? Yeah, so as you were saying earlier on, that the latest version, it was like fully gloves.
Fully
gloves, right?
Yeah, Twin Snakes.
Yeah, the GameCube version, right?
Correct.
So, and on this version, this finger and that finger, gloveless, right? Fingerless.
Correct.
Gloveless, yes.
And that's what we did that's based off of the original Metal Gear Solid version, yeah. And you were saying something about the
sleeves,
the sleeves and the length of the arm.
If memory serves correctly, on the original PlayStation version, the sleeve that goes cut straight down at the top of the shoulders, whilst the GameCube version they kind of go slightly inwards, curving outwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can almost see that we have some aspects from the Metal Gear Solid version and from the Twin Snakes version, all put in there, and also the length of the arms.
Yeah.
There is some differences between those as well. But yeah, you know, ultimately
The arm sleeves, not the actual arms.
Sorry,
the
yes, I mean
sleeves,
up to here.
Yeah.
You know.
So he's trying to find the right balance of using the PlayStation version and
Sure.
GameCube version.
Sure, absolutely agreed.
All right.
Cool.
Right, next question from Denise Kipp. Was it hard to choose his pose, or was it pretty straightforward to have Mantis like he is now? Is it hard for you?
So, it was pretty, yeah, you know, definitely it was pretty difficult. There was definitely quite a few different styles of poses that I actually went through, and it involved a lot of back and forth and a lot of internal debate about which style we should go for. Ultimately, we went with this one. It was kind of trying to get that idea of what he does, and he's all about telekinesis and sort of all messing with your mind, all that kind of thing, and telepathy, yeah, telekinesis, telepathy, all that sort of stuff. So reading minds and moving things with his mind, all that sort of stuff. And having this kind of open palm thing, it has the ability to have a variety of different meanings behind that. It could be controlling flames that don't actually exist, but it's in your mind. It could be controlling moving objects. It has this kind of, he does this pose quite a lot as well.
Right.
And that was the upper body in terms of talking about the pose. Going down into the actual feet, it had to make sense that he is levitating. He has this kind of sense where he's up in the air. And in order to do that, we had to have the legs touch something in order to keep it giving that impression of floating, but done in a way that it gives him that sense of flotation. Now that's why you see, if you look at his feet, they kind of angle downwards, and that's in order to give some stability against this broken pillar that was originally this bust, this broken pillar, angled down. Again, if you look at his left foot, you can actually see that it's not touching the back of the base. So it's giving that impression of floating, because your eye is drawn to the left foot first, and that really sort of makes the kind of floating feeling. Now, of course, there is a book right here, and we need to tweak that. Once that book is removed, you can actually get a better feeling of the way it's floating a little bit more, because you don't immediately get your eye drawn to the back right foot, which is touching the base. You look to the left foot, which is off the base and is forward, and that gives the impression of flotation. So yeah, you know, in terms of the pose, that's really where it came from, in terms of the idea of the hands, the idea of the way that the feet have to create a sense of flotation, or floating, and how to actually engineer that in the way it connects to the base itself, you know, the pillar itself, for sure. What do you think, Chocks?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, right now the book is covering the left foot. So, but looking at it from this angle, you can see that it's actually one above, one in front. So it gives that impression that it's floating. Plus the way he arches forward, as though he's like propping himself through air.
That's correct. That's right. And you can see that with the arch in the back. You've got a really, really big arch in the back, and it gives that really good feeling. Now, it's important that this effect really is put through to the base itself. And you can't have the feeling of a psychokinetic and all that sort of, you can't get that feeling of the pose without talking about the base. So why don't we just slightly jump ahead, Jocks?
Okay.
Another question here.
Question from Brenton.
Brenton.
Yeah, Brenton Freegley. What other concepts for the base were you considering?
Well, that sort of, again, comes hand in hand with some of the designs of the pose. So talking them up together, before we talk about other designs of the base, let's talk about the actual base of what we did. First of all, Jocks, we talked about his character. It has a feeling of telekinesis. It has a feeling of telepathy. Excuse me. All that sort of stuff. In order to talk about the base, let's talk about the environment where you actually meet Psycho Mantis and you have your boss fight with him, Chox.
Yeah, in the kind of what's the room? It's like not a library. It's kind of
a study library.
Study room, kind of. Yeah, that's right. With you can see all the books, the bust and the pillars, the picture frames on the wall. That's where you actually met.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we knew that the environment really needed to look like it was a scene from that fight. It's not like when we did our Snake, he could have been in Shadow Moses, he could have been outside, he could be inside, he could have been here, he could have been there, he could have been this part of the base, that part of the base. There was really only one place with which to put Psycho Mantis, so we had to absolutely focus in on that. Now, if you're focusing in on Psycho Mantis and his boss fight, as we talked a little bit again about the sort of study room, the kind of library, that sort of things, we definitely wanted to make sure that there were certain key aspects from that. So why don't we talk a little bit about the base itself? If you look in the actual game, it kind of looks like, you see when you're Metal Gear Solid, you've got top-down view, right?
Top-down view, yeah.
It's almost like that kind of, how do I say it, almost like a marble kind of flooring, where it's got sort of little lines and stuff going throughout that. Well, you have that kind of detail work already there in the actual base itself.
Yeah, you see the lines there.
Yeah, but what's different is, Chox, this actually looks like, can you see this kind of rippling effect?
Well, first of all, the base complements the pose, because the pose is him levitating and performing his like special moves or whatever you want to call it, right? His magic powers.
Right.
And from the base, obviously you have the marble effect, but as you were saying, it's sculpted where it has ripple effect, as though it's just like that, right? With his powers.
Well, there's two parts on that. The first one is you have to understand that what he's doing is not real. It's all in his mind. As in, you're looking, it's Snake, and Psycho Mantis is doing things to his mind that's not real. There's lots of instances throughout the boss fight where he's manipulating his mind. That's what it's all about. And you having the rippling, you could be both looking at it as if it's rippling and he's doing an effect, but also the way you're looking at it, he's changing the reality. And he's changing reality in a way, like, do you remember like the scenes where like the picture frame is just sitting there and just like a normal person, and then all of a sudden it starts laughing and moving around, right? That's not real. It's because Snake is being manipulated by Psycho Mantis to make you think that the picture frames and the characters in the picture frames are moving around and are laughing and giggling. That whole idea of telekinesis, that idea of making you sort of question reality, is coming in to the fact that the floor is flat, but why is it rippling? Because he's making you crazy to think that it's rippling, right? That, by extension, then goes through to this whole idea of making things move when they aren't really moving, or that kind of feeling, and that really is shown in the books. The books themselves, Chox, they're all over the shop. They're flying around, it's stuck on the end over here, you have ones over here. Before we go into a little bit about the aspects of the wording, why don't you talk a little bit about what you see for the books themselves?
Well, the books are all over the place, like I said. They're stacked on top of each other as though it's like they've been brushed away, brushed aside, been picked up, or squirting around. It's
giving the effect that he's manipulating them. But also you see they're not just like normal shape. But have a look at this book over here, for example. This one over here.
Well, the one beside him is this red book. It's not flat. It's all curved.
It's got that rippling effect that's going through the base. It's actually going through the
book itself.
Through the book itself, and all of them themselves. If you look at a normal book, they're typically very straight, especially the hard-bound books. But these are all in different manners. They're all kind of in the straight, or they're bending. They're all over the shop, and that really is to do with trying to get that impression of something strange happening. It's not real. Why would these books be this sort of shape and
distorted?
And that's a great word, because Chox, let's talk a little bit about the words themselves in the actual book.
Yeah, the actual prints inside the book itself, they're all kind of distorted, like like confused, wavy, whatever word you want to use. It's kind of like.
And that's a really good example over there. That one's like a rippling all over the place. Throughout all of them. None of them are just straight text.
Yeah, even the books underneath here. This one. Any books that's opened, you'll see the text.
And they are all different. Good luck reading it. Yeah, I mean, they're not all the same. They're all having different variations of movement of text. And again, it was that idea of something that's normal being distorted. So the base is distorted. The books themselves are distorted. The texts themselves are distorted. All of this is giving the impression of someone who's using their powers. And if you consider the fact that the books themselves are not just flat on the ground, they have these movements, it creates a really, really dynamic sense of a kind of connection between the pose and the base to really give that impression of him sort of.
Yeah, it's not just like floating; he's also doing something else at the same time as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because someone who just floats is someone who just floats. It's trying to be someone who is manipulating his environment, which is what the entire boss fight is all about. Manipulating the environment. That's why the environment was really important to alter it in a way that it's not just simply, oh, here's the environment, it's just a flat base, and oh, there's a few books on the ground. It was to have that effect going throughout the entirety of the base to give it that feeling that it really is him messing with the viewer's mind, right? This in this case, us looking at that. So yeah, in terms of the base itself, why don't we just continue talking a little bit about the actual busts and
so this is again we're back in the study room. In there you'll see busts and the pillar rested on top of on the plinth or a pillar you want to call it, and so because he's performing his powers, things are all over the place. The bust fell on the ground, laying on the ground. This
crazy detail going around the face. The angle of this was really key, as I said, to get that left foot forward. So we're talking about the base and the pose together. To have the angle of this, the pillar of the bust. So the bust was originally, as you can imagine, it's on the top over here. You can imagine it being on the top, right? But because it's been knocked down, it's fallen down. But the angle and the sense of movement on the base has been pushed back to give that ability to have it sort of straight. Otherwise, there's no real easy way to have him floating, Chocks. He would have to be on the ground.
Yeah.
In order to give him that floating effect, you didn't want him to be just on top of the base. It didn't on top of the pillar. First of all, it didn't make sense because there's a bust there. And you didn't want him on top of the bust. That didn't make any sense either. So the moment that you said, you know what, the base has to conform to the sense of power that Psycho Mantis can do, angling that back gives you that ability to have that floating feeling by having that foot there. And that's definitely something that put them all together and really give that feeling of him using his effect. And one last thing, as I said earlier, we want to make sure we have another prototype, and it doesn't have I think the team assembled it a little bit incorrectly, so you won't have this book covering his foot. The whole point of having that left foot exposed is to give that sense of floating, and you can't have that with this book in the way. And of course, Chocks, every single book, completely different name.
Right, different title, right?
Yeah, do you want to read out a few of them?
Are they even real words?
Yes, they are.
The tragedy of Macbeth.
There you go, the tragedy of Macbeth. What's the interpretation of dreams? Sigmund Freud. We have the art of war somewhere.
Yeah, this one, this purple book here.
Yeah, we've got here the psychology of success. We had to really look through.
Oops! Wow. Steady.
We had to go and look about what are the sort of famous books from all time, the Bible, the different sort of things they could be, and what would you typically find in a typical study. And if you look at the details of, we'll talk a bit more about the details a little bit later on, but yeah, we wanted to add all of the different kinds of different titles. It was the top 50 books in the last 100 years.
That took a lot of reading, right?
I didn't quite read them. I just I know how much you love reading, Chucks. That would have been your homework.
How many books are there in there actually? 1, 2. Does that count a book? That's the book sleeve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
And it's not just the covers, Chucks. They also have it down the spines as well on some of them. This one's on the front. We need to have some on the sides as well. Yeah, it's gonna be. We'll definitely tweak adding a little bit more. Just to some of them are quite hard to read because it was like the color was we did it on black, but then the base color is so dark as well. It made it quite hard to see. So this one you have it on here on the side. It's kind of hard to see. But yeah, cool. Right. Now, just to continue with Brenton's original question, what was the other concept? Well, there are bits in the game where the room's on fire, and again, it's not really on fire, but it's him using his power. And before I could figure out that we wanted to have him floating, he was on the ground, and he was sort of doing something like this as well, where it's like there was like a fire effect that was going through it. But ultimately, it's almost like he was like a pyromaniac. He was more like he was doing like that, as opposed to putting more of an emphasis on his his telekinesis, that aspect of things, telekinesis, and the reading minds and stuff like that. So that was the power that we really wanted to highlight. Really wanted to emphasize that, rather than the fact that there's a little bit where he puts things on fire. Again, it's not about him being an arsonist or pyromaniac. It's not about that.
No, I actually prefer this pose.
It definitely made something. That's why that's on
matches his character.
Matches his character, and that's the reason why the other one is on the cutting floor.
Is in the vault.
Is in the vault.
All right then. Next question from Kai Maria. Nanase. Did you consider making the eyes of the mask solid orange instead of transparent orange to give them a brighter appearance, or could this brighter appearance be achieved with lights?
Okay, this is a great question to talk a little bit about those details. Now, Nanase is referring to his mask itself. So, Chucks, I'm just going to stop the spin.
Yeah.
And over to you. Why don't you talk a little bit about the mask and go all the way down? And what do we see from that?
Alright, so guys, this is very detailed.
It's so detailed?
Yeah, sculpt wise. Yeah, I mean, look at the mask, the actual shape, the actual nozzle, the bits that sticks out of the side, and then the straps themselves, yeah, with the pins themselves. The way it's been textured as well as like leather straps around the back. You can actually see the pins and belt buckles.
So that sort of leather texture straps are going all throughout his entire body. Every time that you see that effect, it's throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
You have a gloss for the leather sort of
the leather straps and the belts. It's more shiny, it has a shiny texture to it. And then the same straps that goes around the back of the head, all the way down to the body there, sticks out from the side, to the buckles around the waist, down to the back of the thighs, along the thighs, with the belt buckles, the belt straps sticking out. It's not just one shiny black strip. It has texture to it, and there's stitching on it as well. So
I noticed that over here they're missing a silver bit. We'll add that back into it.
Oh right, yeah.
So it all follows a basic logic, which is silver sort of accents against a shiny black belt strap throughout the entirety. So as you talked about that one on the mask, that's on the back. Now let's talk a little bit more about the mask, because Nanase is talking specifically about the oranges of the eyes. Let's talk a little bit about the mask and the eyes and that whole effect.
Yeah, I mean, like through right now the scope, obviously. For the mask, and right now just looking at the eyes, you can actually see his eyes behind the lens.
Absolutely right.
Orange tinted lens. So yeah, you can actually see his eye.
which is really, really cool. Now, that's something that we, first of all, Jocks, if you looked at we first announced Psycho Mantis, people showed a picture of it for 2017's Christmas sneaks. And in there, the eyes were not shown. It was a different prototype, it's in the vault now, where the lenses were solid. And we felt that it was a disservice to do it like that. And we remade the head, we remade the mask to show the eyes behind it. And it came out really, really, really well. You can sort of see the eyes themselves have the the pupils, the irises in there. And behind there, of course, in front of it is these lenses. It gives that beautiful depth to it. So when Nanase asking, did you consider making the eyes solid orange instead of transparent? The answer is, not only did we consider it, we started with that, and we found that to be far inferior to this, which is to have it, translucent, transparent, to be able to see the details behind it. That's definitely the right option, and it was far more complicated to do it like that, but man, does it look much better.
Yeah, well, you can actually see his eyes, you can actually see
and he asks,
the human behind him, because like these type of goggles, I don't think you get them where it's like kind of like lens protector, right? So having this one, I prefer it with the eyes shown.
And he asked whether or not we should make it brighter with lights. It doesn't make sense for me that you have a light up feature on the eyes for that.
Well, you don't have a light up feature for this mask, right?
Because it doesn't make sense if you're wearing it to have lights where your eyes are. Unless it's that design, but it's just a normal gas mask that happens to be with a yellow tint. Sorry, an orange tint.
Yeah. Standard gas mask to block out thoughts going into his mind. Yeah.
Definitely. So that's definitely what I wanted to sort of bring attention to with regards to the face itself. But sorry, Charles, I want to keep on going in terms of, we talked a bit about the straps. Let's talk a little bit more about
the actual body itself, right?
Yeah.
Well, continue on from the head. You can look at the stitchings just below the straps at the top. Yeah, the actual head itself, right? So all painted lovely with the skin tones.
About that skin tone, Charles.
Yeah, the skin tone is very good.
It's got these little dots in there that's sort of done in a way that's pushed down. That it's sort of, can you see the dotted effect that's pushed down?
Yeah.
Can we talk a bit about that texture? He hasn't got that much skin showing, but what he does have, it's really got lots and lots of skin texture. Can you see that all throughout that?
And you've got like very, very, very subtle veins. You can see it's like very subtle. It's got, or it could be just shading that gives off the impression that there's veins. So probably more obvious on this side. The neck veins. Yeah. But yeah, you can see the stitch lines going across from this side, coming out on this other side, and on the top as well.
Yeah.
This side as well. And that barcode is obviously, you can see on the top of the head.
Barcode, yeah. And you've got barcode on either side of his shoulder muscles as well. Now, if you look at the anatomy itself, some people will say, you know what,
I'm just looking at that head sculpt, it just gives it more life, where you can actually see his eyes.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It was definitely, it was the right decision. We looked at it, didn't we, in Christmas, and went, you know what? It's a disservice. Let's make it the best we can, and we remade it, redid the head to be able to give it. I think it makes a huge difference. A huge difference. And the body itself, Psycho Mantis is really thin.
Yeah.
In the game.
Scrawny and
except for he's also really thin. But also, if you look at the in-game model and you compare it to Snake, well, Snake is also really thin. Grey Fox is also very thin. They're all kind of quite that sort of thin effect because it's the sign of the times. It's a sign of the sort of software, the technology. That era was done that based on the in-game model. Now, if you compare Psycho Mantis to Snake, he is way thinner than Snake is.
Yeah.
So is he as thin as the in-game thing? Well, the answer is, well, no one really is that thin. Just like Snake wasn't that thin the way we made it, the original one. So this absolutely pairs perfectly in that sense of thinness, scrawniness. He is definitely much thinner than Snake. Now, of course, don't get me wrong, he is toned. He's got lots and lots of anatomy details in there. He's got biceps, he's got muscle tone, but in terms of the thickness of the muscles, they're much, much thinner than it would be, for example, for a Snake. He's very, very lean. Very, very, very lean. And that leanness, you can really see that, Charles. Tell me about what you see at the front here.
His rib cage, yeah?
You can sort of see that he's much thinner and that his rib cage is showing. And you can see that with all the way that the clothes themselves are really skin tight, pulling against him.
That latex like strapped to his body.
Yeah, and can you see that what we've done with there's tons and tons and tons of cloth sort of
where the cloth wraps around the rib cage, and then you get the lines, the grooves, the creases that overlaps with each other.
The folds and the creases.
Yeah, every time there's a strap that goes over a certain part of the body, you can see lines like tightness,
right,
like stretched.
Exactly, and if you look throughout the legs, you can really see that, and you can also see the way it's been squeezed, that the outer edges of the cloth here very slightly bulges over. Now it can't be too much of a bulge over, and the reason why you couldn't do that is because it's supposed to be quite skin tight. If you made it too much of a bulge over, that would imply there's too much material being used, and we know you're trying to give that impression of it being skin tight. So definitely we wanted to give the feeling of skin tightness, but with all the cloth folds at all the different points. It's come out really, really well in that regard. So what do you think in terms of so we've got the strap details, we talked about the cloth.
Yeah.
The skin texture is also there, it's all throughout that. How to look at the hands though as well?
Yeah, the hands themselves. So there's tight gloves, you can see the creases overlapping the palms, details. I mean, yeah, you can still recognize the fingernails underneath the gloves, right? Because it's gripping toward along his fingers. You can still see.
But it's definitely a lot less than the actual forefinger, the index finger and the pinky, where they're really obvious. You can really sort of see it there and there, and it's painted beautifully. You can see it there. For the thumbs and the middle and ring finger, you can maybe just about make out the impression if you're looking closely. It's supposed to be really subtle, and that's why the impression of the nails, where there's no covering, it's really, really obvious. It's really, really obvious. So in terms of the stitching as well, you can see that there's whites of the stitching on his head. Did you notice that one as well? Yeah. It's got some stitch marks going across the back of his head.
Back of the head. And the stitching along the belts themselves is, if you check out the making of documentary for Solid Snake, it has that same stitching effect. It's really, really fine.
And what about the actual texture of the clothing itself?
Yeah, the texture itself, the clothing is different compared to
the straps.
Well, the straps is more leathery straps.
Yeah.
The actual suit itself is different to the mask as well.
Correct.
Yeah. The mask looks very, very hard wearing PVC plastic. That kind of material that you associate with a mask.
Absolutely.
And then the suit will be textured. Yeah. I'm not really into SM stuff, but yeah, this is kind of like that kind of style. And then you go.
When you say not really into it, does that mean you a little bit into it?
You got to try something in life, right? But these boots,
these boots.
The boots back to the leathery type material, right? Those look very leathery type.
Yeah, 100%.
And then the hard wearing kind of a heavy duty plastic around the sole of the boots is very military style. Big chunky grips around the side and the.
He won't slip in the rain?
Nope. Well, he won't slip. He can levitate. If he slips, he just lift himself up. And that big, massive, like what do you call it? The zip. Yeah, that goes along here.
It's painted so well.
Yeah.
And talking again about how
printed, it's sculpted very well.
Yeah. Talking again about the grips on the feet. You remember how we talked about how his left foot is slightly forward? You can really appreciate the grip on the sole of the feet.
Yeah,
you really
yeah.
sort of appreciate that.
It has depths into it as well. It's not just like lines.
Yeah. Now we could have been really lazy and just ignored it because you don't really see it. But you see it from certain angles. We wanted to not cut corners. So that was all sculpted nicely.
Yeah.
And there are also details in the actual design of the costume itself. For example, can you see this line coming down? Maybe if you're from over here.
Alright.
You can see it along here, coming along here, and then through to the other side. And then can you see how it naturally then comes up?
Ah, yeah. That's the pattern of the suit itself, right? Kind of like on the fives, it curves in, but it curves round through the inner fives all the way to the back.
Exactly.
And then it goes all the way.
Where it goes?
All the way back up.
Goes up to the right up to the part up here.
Yeah. And this thing, because it's arching, from this angle, because it's arching, you have a bit of slack on this strap, so that would not be touching his body. There'd be a gap there.
If it was touching his body, that means his whole body would permanently be like that.
Yeah, that's one tight strap.
You're putting it like this, exactly right.
Yeah.
There will be no ability to move your body forwards because it would be, if it was completely, there would be no ability to do that. So, good call. You can see there's a. If you can pick that up on the camera, I think you can see that.
Yeah, you can see that gap.
Definitely. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of detail in what you could just look. Go, oh, it's just a black suit. No, there's so much more detail than just calling it just a black suit would be a disservice.
Yeah. Oh, and then don't forget the barcodes on the on
the shoulders.
Well.
Yeah,
the shoulders on both sides.
Should we talk a little bit about that base then, Jocks? So we talked about the idea of the base, but why don't we actually talk a little bit about some of the actual details that you see going throughout the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, the actual pillar itself, that's very, it gives off the impression of it's old, right? Because it's marble or stone or whatever it's made out of, but you see the cracks, large cracks, smaller cracks.
Can you see the pattern details going throughout?
Yeah, the flowery, floral patterns that goes underneath the pillar itself. It has gives off this kind of authentic, weathered. It's been aged. Yeah. And
if you talk a little bit about the books themselves, if you look at some of them in the corners, have these kind of metal edge, metal edgings,
protectors kind of thing. Yeah.
It's all about adding more sort of realism to it, Jocks.
Expensive books. They are expensive books.
They are expensive.
Yeah. You would expect that in a study room.
Yeah, one of those kind of olden study rooms that you get in like Oxford and Cambridge and that sort of thing.
Yeah, like a psychology room, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've never been to one, but
you haven't seen a psychiatrist before, Jocks?
I can imagine myself just going there and just playing chess.
I can imagine you probably need to go to the psychiatrist now that you've been working here for so long.
Yes, I feel like I need to meet Psycho Mantis. Yeah, and then this.
You go to therapy, Jocks.
First for therapy. Yeah. And then this bust itself. I'm assuming it's pretty much the right scale to the plinth.
Absolutely. The way we do that is we model it together and then boom,
snap it.
Break it down. And you like the way that the books themselves are connected to the bust to give it that more sense of movement. You can see that in the front part. And you have this, again, that kind of leather wrap around his face.
Weird, isn't it?
The whole thing is really complements him so much. So definitely it is chock full of details. You can talk about the details on the base, on the books themselves. Textures for days. If it's the marbling on the floor, if it's the marbling of the bust, if it's the texture on the clothing, the different types of clothing, on the boots, on the mask, the details of the eyes showing through.
And the placement of the body as well, because it's so standing straight, stretched out, so high. You know, having this on a shelf, you'd be drawn upwards, you'd be looking up as though you would expect
This-
because it's levitating.
This angle here is really good. This is really, really good angle. Now, typically, I like to have most statues that I'm working on looking horizontal, and I talked about that with Kirby having the eyes looking forwards. But this one, if you consider the fact that he's the second in the line and there's Snake as well, he looks so great with Snake, and he's looking down. You can sort of, if he was looking horizontal, it wouldn't make sense because he would look over Snake's head. Here, you could put Snake over here, and then they could be looking. You could have that kind of feeling like he's looking down on Snake. And from this angle, if you got him up this sort of high, you're just looking at it. It looks really great.
Yeah, looking straight on, it gives off, because his left foot is sticking forward, it gives off the impression that he's levitating.
That's absolutely right. And that, Chocks, is the perfect statement to go into the next question.
I'm assuming it's Sergey Chap.
Yep.
Will you consider using electromagnets to make him levitate?
So, first of all, this is made in resin and it has a significant weight to it. Now, I've seen some PVCs or lighter objects being levitating.
Right.
And but those are usually, correct me if I'm wrong, they're usually something like a car or something like a spaceship. Have you ever seen a human levitating?
Well, if it would make sense if for example the person is on doing a flying pose, right? So let's say, I don't know, Iron Man or something like that. So is flying. Or
yeah. So to be clear, that's horizontal.
Horizontal, yeah. But not vertical. But I've seen like objects, vehicles, whatnot. Like it made sense because that particular item should be levitating.
Sure. And curse you, gravity. Unfortunately, I don't. First of all, it's in resin. There is an idea of possibly having a magnet box that would mean that if it ran out of power, it would mean that the magnet would lift it up. But that is something that is not proven. That is something that is not, at least in the safety of having this be there for generations and generations. I don't want people contacting CS to go,
Had a power power out
Yeah.
at home, and this whole thing just went boom.
Yeah, that's the last thing I ever want to do. But you know, if we ever to, for example, make a PVC version, I'd be interested to sort of look into that. But again, for like hovering stuff, it's usually this sort of way. It's more like a horizontal rather than a vertical. So the answer is no. We will not consider using magnets to make him levitate because curse you, gravity.
Too much of a risk. Right, next question from Adam El Gamal. Can he read my memory? Can he read my card history and tell me what purchases I've made?
Well, I did ask Psychomantis earlier.
Credit card
his
history.
credit card history, and I'm not sure you really want me to be saying. Bearing in mind it's NSFW. You know what I'm talking about. But no, absolutely, yeah. You know, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about that too much. All right.
Right. I believe that's the questions for
Yeah,
now.
I think so.
All right, next section. Shout outs. Guys, as earlier on I was saying when I said I'll make a post in the Collectors Club on Facebook, well, in there I will randomly drop a statement in there and saying first 10 people to reply to that statement will get a shout out from Alex. So
without further ado, Nana say shout out to you, Adam Elgamal, what's going on, mate? We have Brendan Rostello in the house, what's going on? Matt Reed, there's people getting their questions answered as well. Moses E. Leva, how's it going? Ryan Rostello, it's 2 for 2 for the Rostello brothers. We have Jessica Cassidy in the house, how's it going? Jason Lopez, what's up, mate? Brandon Evans, how's it going? And last but not least, Johnny DeJesus, I'm so happy that it's not Derek Baker. You must have done it like when he was speaking, right?
No. There's been a lot of tagging on this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of tagging
I like
on this
it.
particular documentary.
Excellent. Right. Well, Chocks, so this is Psycho Mantis. So many years it's been in the works. Here we are. It's so awesome to be here. Now, Chocks, this of course is the regular version. If you are a long time sort of know what we do, we typically do a regular and an exclusive version. So yeah, you know, Chocks, again, let's go through what the regular is and then boom, we'll bring out the exclusive.
Okay, so the regular version right now, you have the base with the pillar, the books, you know, the bust itself, and then you have Psycho Mantis levitating just in front of the pillar with his arms out, with the mask on, head sculpt. Yeah, so I believe that's it for the regular.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to show you the exclusive in 3, 2, 1. Boom! Check it out, guys. Psycho Mantis exclusive comes with an additional head, an unmasked portrait.
Good looking dude.
What a handsome chap. Let's give it a bit of a turn so you can see his face in all his glory.
He means business.
Though maybe perhaps people might answer that, people might say it's a face that only your mother would love, but hey, I love it, so...
Well, you all you need is a barcode on your head.
That's, I got the, I just realised the bold reference. A bit too late, but yeah, for sure.
That mean stern face.
And that's really, really cool because, again, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about, go on, Chocks, over to you for the details.
Yeah, those eyes, are they the same eyes as the ones that's looking through the gas mask?
Yeah.
Is it same expression? You're giving off this same...
Yeah.
Ah, that's right. So you can see the scope on that face there with the stitching. Now like with the gas mask on, you can see the stitching. Yes, have it side by side. Yeah. You can see the stitching on the back.
So you're doing this for me.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of it is hidden by the straps over here, but you can definitely see it starting from over here, just above the ear.
Just above the ear, yeah.
Going all the way to the other side above the ear.
All the way to... Oh, you're going forwards, yeah?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean... Right.
You're going backwards.
So does yours go... Oh, wow, yours goes all the way...
All the way around.
Oh, yeah,
like
mine
360, yeah.
Mine can't, because it... I mean, it looks like it is, but it's within the...
Within the mask itself. So this time is like all the way around. That's some stitch work there. And then it goes from this side all the way...
So I've, snap. I've got that as well. Now because you look at
actually, it's good if you show it that way.
Yeah,
you can see what I mean.
If you've got the straps on, you still have. It's not right in the middle. The actual bit that's going down the side is to the right hand side of his head. Yeah. And that allows for you to have the strap down the middle, right here, Chocks. You see that you've got the strap right down the middle, but then you have that stitching going to the right of the strap itself, and. Yeah, you can really see that going down there.
And you can see clearly the barcode on his right side of his head, again.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, you can see how the type of character, the kind of face shape he has, with a very bony and scrawny like face feature.
Very sunken. Have a look at that lack of nose. You can see it's kind of like carved away, kind of like the tip of the nose is completely carved away. Now, can we just talk a little bit about when do we see this? And where did this head come from? How is it, what's it referencing, and where did it come from? Well, that's right after you kill him, he gets a mask, Chocks. And he's still talking, but he's about to die, but when you pull off his mask, this is the face that you get seen, that you see, and it's really quite shocking when you see it. All the stitching talk a bit about his mouth, Chocks.
Yeah, so that's the stitching, right? That is stitching. Yeah, stitching to the right side of his mouth as well. That's sticking out.
Now, what we originally did was the stitching was in metal, in sort of silver, but Konami was like, no, it needs to be in a cloth kind of thread kind of stuff. Yeah. So we changed that to the white that you see here, that kind of creamy off-white. And again, that whole idea of sunkenness in the eyes, you can see that in the skin wrinkles and the skin textures. It's really sort of sunken and...
Look at those eye bags underneath his eyes. He
Yeah,
hasn't had much sleep, has he?
I know how that feels. I feel like Psychomantis this morning, Jocks. Yeah, you know, it's definitely a really good representation of that face that you see removed.
And that paint app, I was saying, with the mask on, you, from if you look at it from the back of his head, you can see the specks, the little specks, the textures. The paint application now is going through all the entire face now. You can see the lines, the wrinkles, the creases, the bridge of the nose.
Absolutely.
All right then. So next question from Brendan Rostello. How did you decide on the exclusive?
So, you know, obviously we've just talked about how we went with that, but I think it really made sense. When you fight against him and you finally do, you know, kill him and you unmask him, it made sense to have the Psychomantis to have that version of him, and I think it was quite early on in the design phase that I knew it was going to be an unmasked portrait, because it's such a unique face, Jocks. I mean, look at that mouth being half sewn up.
Well, you should never judge. What's the saying? You should never judge a
book by its cover.
Yeah,
or what?
book by its cover, right? So it's kind of like that, because at the last moment when he passed away, he did a good deed, right?
Yeah, that's right.
He did a good deed.
True. That's true. Now imagine, of course, if he had all of his mouth stitched up. He couldn't do much. He couldn't say much.
He couldn't do much, say much, yeah.
Unless, of course, he uses telepathic skills and just told you everything, and you could just hear it.
True. Getting very deep, aren't we?
Hey, you know, we could talk about anything on the documentary apart from Adam Elgamau's card history. There's some things you just don't talk about. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
So that is the exclusive version.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So
Jocks, can you do me some sizings? I'm going to do
additional head.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to do some sizings here. So this is a tall beast, Jocks.
Right. Coke can test.
Yeah. This is a beast. So these guys are 330 ml cans. So for an American family, you usually have around about 355.
355, I think, yes.
330, so very slightly smaller. And look at that.
How many cans? Oh.
Just shy of the 6. Just shy of the 6. That is... It's been a tall one, Jocks. Alright, Jocks, do you want to give some of the sizings and the weights?
Yes, so... okay. Height. From the bottom of the base to the top of the head.
Yep.
Alright, so obviously there's a slight couple of millimeters height advantage with the mask one because of the straps.
Yeah.
I got that around about 26 inches, so that's 66 centimeter. Yep. For the width, got it from that side of the base to this one. Remember,
that's going to be quite small, tight.
Yeah. But there's books sticking out ever so slightly. I have that around about 13 inches, give or take. So that's 33 centimeters. And for the depth,
similar, I guess it's got this.
Let's say I'll do the depth like that.
Yeah.
Just be careful like that. So the pillar sticking slightly back, and then to the front of that book.
Oh, the pillar, of course.
Yeah, the pillar is slightly, ever so slightly.
Okay, yeah.
So I've got that.
It's a bit longer then.
16 inches. So that's around about 41 centimeters.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a little bit deeper than.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. And for the weight, I have that at 7.2 kg. So that's going to be the same for the regular version as well, because there's no electronics or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's got some definitely got some weight to it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And all right, so let's have a look at just see all the books. The Praise of Folly.
Oh, you're looking at this one.
Yeah, the book. See what the names were. That's cool. So, Jocks.
Right.
This is the exclusive version. We're
Exclusive
talking
version.
about the regular. So the regular version is just with this head,
With the mask on.
the mask on. And the exclusive comes not with this head only, but it also comes with the original
So
regular
two
head.
heads.
So two heads.
Two heads, same base, same body, two heads
All right.
for the exclusive version.
Okay. But that's not quite all, is it, Jocks?
I thought we're done.
I know you want to go home for dinner, but not quite.
Okay.
Because I believe we have a little something different, Jocks. And why don't we show that in 3, 2, 1. Boom! Check it out, guys. Optic camouflage.
That's right.
Psycho Mantis.
That's the first thing Solid Snake says to Psycho Mantis.
That's absolutely right. And
Optic camouflage.
and look at that, Jocks. Look.
Yeah.
Can you see the way that?
Yeah. I
Love
can't
that.
see him.
Check it out, guys. This is the Optic. I love it. I love that. Look at that. Look at the way that passes through it. Now, of course, Chocks, in the game, you're fighting Psycho Mantis, minding your own business, pow, 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 and then he disappears. And he does this great invisibility thing. Now, the question is, of course, does he actually turn invisible, or is he imagining it? This is the point. He's messing with your mind the entire time. Here, we have that concept of him being in that beautiful translucent effect, give him that feeling of being part of that optic camouflage. As I was saying, it's completely translucent going all the way through it, but there are some paint changes and subtle differences to it just to give a little bit of differences. Now if you look at it actually on the camera, Chocks, you can really sort of see how that is. Let's give it a bit of a turn. If you look very carefully about how that goes throughout, can you see that there are some subtle color changes, Chocks?
Yeah.
So why don't you talk a little bit about some of the areas that you see there are some differences?
Well, something very, very instant are any areas that show skin. For example, the head, the upper arms. You can see a slight tinge of like a skin color, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So kind of like a pinkish color. So you can actually see that along the lines.
Yeah.
The muscle lines. And then in this one you can actually see his eye as well. Yeah.
Yep.
You can see his eyes. Yeah.
His eyes actually, to be honest with you, are a little bit too strong. I'm going to rework it so it's a little bit more translucent for the eye, so it's not so strong. Because otherwise, like, hey, it's a pair of eyes running around. And the same thing for the barcodes as well.
Yeah.
A little bit too strong. I wanted just to make it just a little bit more subtle. It's there, but it's not, you know, floating barcode in eyes kind of feeling.
Yeah, and then, like, obviously this is in a bright studio room right now. I've got lights shining right through his suit here. This is kind of a clear resin, but it has that kind of slight tinge of blackness, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. You can really see it on the camera. There's a distinction between the black of the suit, the skin tone, and the straps. Can you see them?
Yeah, the straps stick
Are
out.
darker.
Yeah, much darker. Yeah.
I mean, you say it's really dark, but it's actually not very dark at all. But when you see it and compare it to the rest of the body, i.e. the skin tones, the head, you know, all of that sort of stuff, it's much more obvious that there are differences between the whole thing, and it's come out really,
Yeah.
really
So
nicely.
it's not just one chunk of clear resin. It's it has paint apps on that as well.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, you know, it still involves staining and painting, and definitely has all that effect into it. But really, really catches the light really, really well. It goes really, really well if you ever bought some of the triple snake packs from Solid Snake.
The neon green camo.
The Essential Edition, yeah. All of that sort of stuff. That really goes together really, really nicely and make for an awesome display. But yeah, you know, definitely, Chocks, it made sense very early on that we wanted to do this version of him.
Who would get all the camouflage version? It's like a camo team, right? That'd be quite cool.
It looks really good. As I said, it's a very different style of green. What I mean is, it's a very different style from the greens of the snakes that have his own version, where it really is quite, where he matches the colour of the
suit,
environment,
yeah.
of the environment itself. Yeah, so that is definitely. It's got, of course, chocks. All the same details.
All the same details. The stitchings, the textures, they're all there. Everything's there, sculpted exactly the same as the regular and exclusive edition. This one, major difference are the paint app to the skin and the actual suit as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, of course, this is a version that is the same as the exclusive one when it comes towards the actual pieces. Now, he comes with a beautiful another head as well as the unmasked portrait as well. And as I was saying a little bit earlier, Chocks, you can see that the eyes themselves are too strong.
Yeah, this one is, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually the same as the one underneath there, but actually it is not covered by it's more obvious. So
more obvious, yeah.
Yeah, we'll turn that down. Chocks, you want to give it a bit of a...
Yeah.
Just
swappy
swap. Yeah.
Alright guys, so usually our switch out parts are...
got strong magnets.
Yeah, this one has very, very strong magnets, so yeah. Ooh, it's really hard from this angle.
Yeah, turn it around.
There you go. Nice leaf. Yep.
Yep.
Ooh, you see so much.
You can see how it matches the. So if you put those side by side, you can really see that there is the differences of the translucentness. So you can see how the darkness of, because obviously his real color is black for
the mask and the straps, yeah.
And you can look what a difference there is between that and the pink translucentness of the regular head, of the skin head. So you can really definitely see the differences between that right there. And yeah, they look really, really great. Really, really great to have that. Again, the eyes, we need to tone that down a bit. The barcodes themselves need to tone down a little bit. And you can definitely get that feeling of that he is translucent, that he is confusing Snake. He doesn't know where he is, and yeah, it came out really, really nicely. Love it. I love it. All right, Chocks. Yeah, looks good. Right, I believe we have a few more questions, Chocks.
Alright then, next question from Alessio Bucci. Can you show us a comparison with Snake? I
think that's a great idea. Why don't we show that? Let's get the exclusive version of, the regular version of Psychomantis with Snake. Alright, why don't we show that in 3, 2, 1. Boom! Check it out, guys. Of course, we have Psychomantis over here. Solid Snake right here. What a awesome setup. Now we're beginning to see the Metal Gear Solid line taking place. Check that out, Chocks. Give us a bit of a turn.
Yeah.
Look at that.
My psycho powers.
So
we meet again.
I thought I killed you before. Yeah, I mean, look, this is how they compare with each other, guys. Imagine if they're facing off. That would be him looking directly down at Snake and him behind cover, preparing for some attack against him. Yeah, that looks awesome. Now, we were talking a little bit before about Chocks, about how skinny he is. When you compare him in the world of the resin statue pieces, look how solid and thick Snake is compared to the thinness of Psychomantis. Yeah, the boy's toned, don't get me wrong, but he's nowhere near as beefy as Snake is. And Snake, we actually went back and reduced the thickness of his biceps, but even at this reduced thickness of the biceps, it is way thinner, so way thicker than the thickness of the biceps of Psychomantis himself. So, together they make a lot of sense. And one thing I wanted to say, Chocks, is, actually I forgot to mention this earlier on. This is Psychomantis' exclusive head. Right. And actually, what I forgot to mention is that Psychomantis' exclusive head is very slightly bigger than the head of the masked one, and we're in the middle of upscaling it just a little bit to match the size of the head. Yeah,
upscaling this head.
Just this head. This head is perfectly fine.
Upscaling the masked head to match with the unmasked head in scale-wise. He can levitate his head now.
Psycho power. Right, so these guys are the same scale of the head, right?
They're like kissing each other.
Well, Yeah, they're not quite facing each other, right? So they are the same size, and we need to upscale the size of the head over here.
On this one?
Yep, to take that into account. So that's what we will be doing. So that gives it even more of a, just to make sure. The only reason to do that, Chocks, is because we're considering that those that buy Snake, that also buy Psycho Mantis, want to make sure that they are all, of course, matching.
That's right.
So that's definitely for sure. So look, guys, hopefully you agree. They look fantastic next to each other, and really taking into account this environmental base, his environmental base, when you wanted to sort of take that into consideration when making the pieces. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful. They go really great together, and so happy that we can finally show you guys them and how the sort of plan for the entire line sort of goes with each other.
Hope that answers your questions, Alessio.
I believe we have one more question, Jocks.
Yes, last but not least.
Last but not least.
Julian Marcos Santamaria. Are you going to continue with Metal Gear line? Maybe Grey Fox?
We will most certainly be continuing the Metal Gear Solid line. We will keep on going as long as you guys keep supporting us. We're already very far deep in development with Grey Fox. Is actually being, Cyborg Ninja has been approved in the sense of the 3D. We're now going to the physical, and he will be also, he's quite, again, very, very thin in the game, but he's not in the statue. He's quite buff, and he's buff in the way that these guys are true to more realism rather than the in-game counterpart. So it will make sense. How does Psycho Mantis look compared to Snake, compared to Grey Fox? They all make sense by having the same style of buffness. Now, Psycho Mantis is much thinner than Snake, and the Grey Fox will be just as buff as Snake himself. And yeah, you really get a better idea of what's going on with that. And you know, what do you guys want to see? Do you want to see Sniper Wolf next? Who do you want to see? Do you want to see Liquid? Do you want to see Revolver Ocelot? Who do you want to see? Let us know in the comments here on YouTube. Let us know in the club in Facebook. You know, on Facebook. We love to hear back from you guys. We love to mold the lines based on what you guys want to see. So do please let us know. Chocks, anything to add before we wrap this bad boy up?
I believe that's it. So yes, do support the line. Do share this out to your fellow Metal Gear Solid fans. We know there's plenty of those out there.
Absolutely.
And yeah, any feedback, good or bad, anything you want to say, leave us a comment in the YouTube video, and join our Collectors Club. And we want to see this line keep on going. Yeah.
Alright, Shocks, that's another one wrapped up.
Nice.
I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Chuckles.
FRF is love.
FRF is life.
I will see you in the next one. Peace.
Laters.